Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is me, Sacred G. Whatever you want to call me. Well, today it's not a full released video. I'm going to be re-going over this live, I guess. We're going to actually watch it together because what I do is I record what I'm going to react to and then I put it in the video. But we're going to watch this together. And, yeah, some of this stuff we've already seen. I'm also going to be watching it with closed captions, so without further ado, here we go. And this is actually, I should have pointed this out in my video. This is pretty much Kretosis. I'll explain later once we get to that segment again, because there's a little more I wanted to add, and I didn't complete the intro.
In 2019, I made a response to Miniature Nerd's video, Fallout 3 is better than you think. Overall, his video was really bad, with very few valid or accurate points. Throughout
Subjective, I wouldn't say it was a bad video.
his video, John had made many fallacious arguments and blatantly false statements. He removed context that was inconvenient to his arguments. He even straight up invented things in order to make Fallout 3 look better than New Vegas. And at his worst,
I need to respond to that. No, John was simply pointing out issues in New Vegas that do exist. Just saying. I don't think he did it to throw New Vegas under the bus. Because New Vegas isn't perfect. Like, you don't understand the argument here. So so one thing you might notice is it might go really quiet, because that's when I think it's convenient to shut the mic off. But if there's something I need to respond to, I might just leave it on. So you might be hearing it going on, off, not like repeatedly.
he misrepresented what other YouTubers had said in order to make them look foolish and wrong.
No, because most of those YouTubers that he mentioned, like Indigo Gaming, is subjective. Like, one of your guys' literal arguments is there is no combat option for Little Lamplight. I mean, who wants to kill children in a game? I know these motherfuckers do.
Overall, it came off as a really desperate, in defense of type video.
Yeah, kind of, but it was more of a defensive Fallout. Yeah, defensive Fallout 3. It's what the fucking video is. It's not titled that. It's titled Fallout 3 is better than you think, but whatever.
Where he spent much of the video trying to defend Fallout 3 from any and all criticism.
No, he didn't. Even to this day. Even to this day, he didn't. The video was 2 hours. It was shortened, but I don't think it was because of bullshit reasons that like this. I mean, the whole video was an opinion.
Even turning what few criticisms he admitted around into positives, rather than actually talking about why he personally liked it, or any legitimate positives.
He did. I'm pretty sure he did. Like, all of the points he brought up were things he personally liked about it. He was trying to have people give it another chance. He wasn't forcing people. He didn't think less of them.
Game might have had, while at the same time, he took quite a few
just ignore this, and the video wouldn't change. Okay.
Accurate shots at New Vegas in an attempt to make Fallout 3
No, they were pretty accurate. You want to hear the most accurate shot that I'm going to take in New Vegas? The world's pretty empty. Yeah. Like, yeah, I'm not saying it's completely empty, there's nothing in it. I'm saying compared to games like 3 and 4. But whatever.
look better by comparison. Just
I don't think that's what John was doing. I mean, some of the points he brought up about New Vegas were... Yeah, okay, I'm just going to try to get through this.
to give a few examples of what I mean here, I'm going to start with a rock-solid, ironclad, irrefutable example here. He said what the developers tutorialize first is what they think is most important to their game. Now, ignoring the fact that's completely false...
Yeah, and also you're comparison or counter is rather dumb, because, well, those skill checks, which he actually shows on screen, require skills to go into, and you can totally just not specialize in any of them, or just complete Ghost Town gunfight and get the fuck out, or whatever side of the coin you're on in that in that quest line, and you can complete it without doing them. And even if you had to, you'd have to specialize in those skills.
He then goes on to say that Fallout 3 has dialogue come before
His point, like I said in the video, is that Fallout 3 has a much different opening and approach than Fallout 1, 2, and even New Vegas do. Because 2 and New Vegas throw you into the world, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But, yeah, 3 has a different approach. And same with 4. Just says Bethesda's innovative.
shooting, which is true,
Like change.
but that New Vegas tutorialized shooting before skill checks.
They
So
fucking do. Literally, before Ghost Town gunfight even starts, you're either given the option to hunt with Sunny Smiles, and to be completely honest, that's what John means. It's a no-brainer, man. Like, I don't know why you think that's an issue. Like, you're making it into an issue because you're bringing it. You're bringing in things like that don't even include or are with his point. He's saying the tutorial stuff, like Fallout 3 has a different approach to that. That's his entire point.
also ignoring the fact that there's regular dialogue in Doc Mitchell's house anyways,
Which
just
people, not everybody would have known about that. I actually had, well, I've had it happen once, but it's forgettable. Who cares? Good Springs is a boring ass town anyways. Once you're done with the Ghost Town gunfight, or whichever side of that coin you complete or side with, it's kind of a dull town. You just kind of move on after that.
like the vault in Fallout 3, there's actually no less than 4 possible skill checks
Now, of course, that was my opinion.
in his house.
And this is what I mean. See, science of 25 or greater. And I don't understand why they have the chem station as like a tutorial item. Because it gives you the incentive that you can use chem stations if you actually saw these when you woke up and did all this before you left Doc's house.
the very first room of the entire game. He is factually, objectively wrong.
No, dude, you're just bringing in terrible comparisons. He was overall saying that the tutorial sequence in Fallout 3 is different than that of New Vegas 2 and 1. Yeah. I'm sorry to bring that up to you, but
Saying that New Vegas tutorializes
it's
shooting
not objectively. You just think he's wrong.
first, and that skill checks only come in quite a bit down the line.
Because they do.
Especially when the combat tutorial
Now, this is where things get a little wonky here, because I'm not a John stan, or many a true nerd. I'm going to start calling him that, because I'm not a big fan of him, so I don't deserve that. But, this is where things get a little funky, hold on, I gotta go back to his point. I am sorry about that.
their game. Now, ignoring the fact that's completely false, he then goes on to say that Fallout 3 has dialogue come before shooting, which is true, but that New Vegas tutorialized shooting before skill checks. So also ignoring the fact that there's regular dialogue in Doc Mitchell's house anyways, just like the vault in Fallout 3,
Which doesn't matter.
there's actually no less than 4 possible skill checks in his house.
Not in your face.
The
You
very
go
first
out of your way to find it.
room of the entire game.
That's what John meant. You talk with Butch. What do you not do you not think that's talking? Do you just think that's cutscene? because yes, you talked to Doc Mitchell.
He is
You talked to
factually
Doc Mitchell first, but it doesn't give you any speech checks or anything like that. It's more after the gecko hunt, or if you choose not to do it. But the key point is that the overall tutorial does tutorialize the shooting. It does. The gecko hunt, man.
objectively wrong in saying that New Vegas tutorializes shooting first, and that skill checks only come in quite a bit down the line, especially when the combat tutorial.
Alright. So this is where it's washy. I don't know if that's what John meant, but because if that's the case, then that's a subjective sort of argumentation, like what this is. Well, it's not even that. It's Kratos is bringing this up for no reason. Like, at all. He's missing what John is getting at with this point. I just don't get it. Because John worded this wrong. If he did... Because he did say they come a bit down the line. But at the same time, that's not what he was getting at. He was saying Fallout 3 overall speech is... And it does. You're given a speech check and dialogue options when you talk to Butch. Whether you think it's bad or not.
Tutorial is optional. I don't know how or why he would get something so simple wrong. He additionally claims that Legate Lanius is just some guy who isn't that important and doesn't affect the plot much, even using a quote from Ulysses in Lonesome Road, in which he says that it might not even be the same man under the mask, but he misunderstands the point of Lanius and why he's handled the way he was, that he's supposed to be a symbol to the Legion.
A terrible one, because he's not really mentioned until either you dig deep into the Legion's lore or, until the end of the game. And for people that don't care to do that, sadly, they just don't. They're not going to know that, and they're going to be put off because he just shows up. Because honestly, that's kind of terribly implemented in. I mean, at least give some NCR soldiers some knowledge about the terror of the East. Could be
the
wrong,
myth and history of what Lanius is more important than who he is, and this information is given in the very same set of dialogue from Ulysses as the quote John uses to support his argument. In what I believe to be a really dirty and disingenuous move, he frames an argument that Indigo Gaming made regarding
his videos are subjective. A lot of them are.
Fallout 3 limiting choice as being completely invalid by taking its quote and applying it to a different part of the game, where Indigo had referred to Lamplight specifically, where combat and aggressive action of any kind is completely stripped out of the game.
Again, a weird argument. Why do you care so much about killing children in a game? I'm not saying that this is what he darkly thinks about, behind closed doors, but this is weird. I don't know why this is an argument. I think Kratos just wants to kill everything. I've heard that said, so I'm pretty sure that's the case. It's just weird. They don't understand that they look kind of weird saying that. Even Indigo Gaming does, too, since he made the argument.
John had got
Unless, like most YouTubers, heard it from somewhere on the internet.
On another quest that does have a bit of choice and quoting Indigo Gaming verbatim, and even using a tone of voice to imply the very notion of what Indigo had said was absurd and ridiculous.
But for now, honestly, does that quest full of alternative solutions, dark themes, and grey moral questions sound...
You're taking this out of context. You're taking this out of context completely. What were the choices?
Antithetical to the very core of Fallout games.
John also completely...
The very core of Fallout games. I don't think there's even a fucking stable core for Fallout. That's my honest opinion.
Invents the idea that Megaton's food source is the 3 entire mole rats that spawn.
That's not the case. We can go and look. I'm going to do that actually. Prove my point here. Fallout 3 is better than you think. Then... Wow, it's not popping up. I don't know why. There it is. So, I don't know if this is broken
Sold
up.
well and fight.
It's not. Damn it. Alright, so we gotta find the relatively same clip where he goes into the food source. The food source. It's almost making me want to rewatch this entire video and just note everything down. But I know this isn't the video that we're reacting to. I'm trying to find the... Is there a timestamp in the comments? Sometimes people... Okay, no time codes. That's great. Please, John, put time codes in your video. I'm trying to look for it. Okay.
That's all superficial stuff. Let's look at the core conflict that's always existed at the heart of the Brotherhood. Is isolationism good or not? In Fallout 3, Lyons has already decided the answer is no. He's opened up his Brotherhood to the outside. But that's not a change. That's pretty much been the standard arc for the Brotherhood in every game. In Fallout 1, the Brotherhood are initially locked away in their bunker.
Trying to find his argument. I know it's there. Yeah, this is the little lamplight argument. This is the megaton. Okay, I think he gets into food further down. Let's actually do this. He's waving around that bait stick for the mole rats. I've done that quest before. Yeah, if I can't find it, for right now, you're just going to have to sadly take my word on it. But he does say that wildlife, and the main point was wildlife, was not mole rats, which is funny. Trying to find... I think he might have removed it. I don't know. I don't think that's the case. I hope not. Okay. Alright. I'm not saying it. That's a sham. Okay, let's probably start here. Maybe it's around here.
The Wasteland hasn't recovered from nuclear devastation. The pockets of civilization are fragile and insecure. In Arathu, they're about ready to give up. In Big Town, the people are initially pretty much completely despondent. This is a game that dwells on the horror of nuclear apocalypse. And accordingly, at a basic level, I think there's something fundamentally horrifying about the very presence of these operational nuclear weapons. America is in ruins, but there's still a few more nukes ready to go off yet. Fallout 3's grim world is haunted by its nuclear past, whether that's in the form of radiation that infects every water source in the wasteland, old Voltec experiments into the forced evolutionary virus that's now running rampant, or the surviving weapons that can threaten what little progress has been made, a theme powerful enough that New Vegas would revisit it in Lonesome Road, as it's hidden away along a line that can only be accessed from a station tucked away behind a heavily irradiated expression Old World Blues. To quote that DLC,
Alright, whatever. I can't find it. This isn't going to be the only video of me doing research like this. I'm going to pull up his Fallout 4 video just in case, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to go through this. Than you think, because Kratos is reacting to the first video. Alright, well, John's point was wildlife.
Town. Even though there's absolutely nothing in the game to reference or imply that this is the case. There's no one who hunts them, there's no one who herds them, and there isn't a scrap of mole rat meat in Megaton.
He just wants things shown to him. That's fine. But you're forgetting, like I mentioned, this is a 2008 game. All that stuff would have been probably terrible for the engine. Who knows? I don't. I'm not claiming I do.
At least, not that I could find. He just assumes that they're a food source. with
No,
absolutely
he doesn't. You took that out of context or ignored his point. I don't know which it was, because he did not say that. He said specifically that wildlife is the food source.
basis for it, because he wants to defend Fallout 3 from criticism.
No.
He also outright
that's the
invents the
case.
idea that New Vegas doesn't have many dungeons. Again, just to prop up Fallout 3.
Nope, because New Vegas doesn't. Like, every... There's a few dungeons. I'm not saying New Vegas does not have any. But they're very small. And not many of them. Because it's in a desert. You gotta add things, at least in this world, that Obsidian made. You gotta add things that make sense to the world. Like, I think adding too many things would have... It's the thing is, there's less dungeons, okay? I don't want to get too, into game dev stuff, because I don't know shit about that. Or even guessing about it. That's what I was trying to do.
And he even acknowledges the fact that Obsidian didn't have much development time, and completely ignores it for a bizarre and baseless...
No, because Obsidian, as I stated, does get into shit like that. They tend to make these shady deals that they never fulfill. It's not even... There's even a quote from him that states it wasn't Bethesda's fault, which I think this is... I don't know, but yes, it's
theory
amazing, Kratos.
that the game just didn't...
Everybody knows it. Everybody and their motherfucking mother knows this.
have enough loot
At
to
least
put
in
it
the Fallout community. It's not new information.
in the dungeons, and that's why they didn't make many. Which he immediately contradicts by talking about how many unique weapons are in the game and aren't in dungeons. He also makes an argument here comparing the direct
That's pretty shitty too. I did catch that.
number of skill books in each game, which is entirely invalid for the point he's
I
trying
don't know. I don't know who to believe.
to argue.
He's not
Is there-
showing clips of it. I know I'm the one to talk. I didn't show the clip of the food thing, but he says it.
Argument is that there aren't many dungeons due to a lack of loot, and he says Fallout 3 has over 300 skill books, while New Vegas has around 98 or so. Point is, the direct numbers are completely meaningless for this argument, because those numbers are simply how many skill books appear in the game world, and not the available amount of them to place in the game. Literally nothing is stopping Obsidian from adding more skill books in that regard.
And that's when I said you proved his point. There's not very many loot in New Vegas. Or many skill books.
There aren't unique copies of skill books, like the magazines in
Not a
Fallout
lot of loot then.
4. It's just one item of each type that's placed into the world
I think there's an exceptional amount in New Vegas, but there's not a lot.
multiple times. If you find two
There's a
big
couple of buildings, actually, on your way to New Vegas, at least in my playthroughs, where they've been completely empty. So,
books of science in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, it's the same item in the code of the game, you just have two of them. This means Obsidian could have placed as many skill books as they wanted into the game. There is no limiting factor here. Even entertaining this argument is ridiculous.
just listen to how mad he is. I don't know.
Because it's baseless, and something he invented whole cloth,
He
so
didn't
it's
invent that.
rather easy to disprove.
Most like your arguments.
It's also worth noting that populating a world with
I just
collectible
don't understand. This is 5 minutes in. Like, put time codes. This is kind of dumb. I'm not in a place to comment really on this. It's just weird that this is the focus of the intro.
does not make it immersive.
But, of course, this is, a response video.
This is supposedly an
you can
RPG
do
we're
whatever the
talking
fuck you
about
want.
here, not a looter shooter.
I just don't agree.
There's nothing wrong with dungeons, collectibles, or looting, but they're not the core of what the game should be, nor do they fix poor writing. As mentioned, at many points during his video, he unfairly puts New Vegas down.
No, he doesn't. You need to, like, if you're trying to bring up an old video, then use the arguments he's made against New Vegas. The ones that put New Vegas down.
Inaccurate criticisms,
I don't think so.
which is especially weird when people in the comments were quick to tell me that New Vegas is his favorite Fallout game. I'm still getting comments to that effect. Now keep in mind, these are just some examples. I covered pretty much his entire video in my response to him.
Just look at that. Like, how mad do you have to be to make a garbage thumbnail like that? I'm the one to talk. You know, I'm not perfect at it myself, but this is just telling of the kind of video you'd be watching if this was still up. 6 hours. Like, I'm going to show you guys something. The video... We're going to have to make a new tab here. Whoops. Kratos is, and then we go here. 8 hours, 15 seconds, and a minute, or 15 minutes in a second. Don't know how remaking the video can equate to 8 hours. I would have thought that it would have taken some down if you wanted to be fair, but nope. I don't know. It's weird.
Including these same arguments, but with more depth than I have here. Point is, this video is pretty garbage. No offense, John, truly, but it's just really not a good video.
Do you...
When I had responded to him originally, someone had posted my video to his subreddit, and his response was to misrepresent me, my video, and my arguments, use ad hominems against me to discredit what I had said.
Okay, keep that in mind. We're going to leave this up. I'm going to move it, though. I was gonna look it up to find. I've read this on Reddit, actually. But I was curious whether this had anything useful to add to the debate, and got 90 seconds in before we hit objectively speaking. Fallout 3 is horribly flawed at best, with zero qualification at all, which gives me a good idea how solid this argumentation is going to be here. My spidey senses tingled at that point, and so I opened his Fallout 4 video, and that too begins with an unqualified declaration that Fallout 4 is objectively bad. So I guess just declaring things he doesn't like as objectively bad is a thing he does. Which is not a lie. Anyways, just skimming through, I'm going to list one of the things here that sums it all for me. He basically says I'm an idiot for believing that the bomb at the core of Megaton fell with enough force to create the crater that the town's built around, because it's physically impossible for the impact to have moved that much earth, and that only something like a meteor could do it. This is what Kratos said. He said something like a meteor could do it. Okay, so in which case, what caused the Megaton crater? Get that word mixed up with creator. Either in an incredible coincidence, there was already a huge crater next to a housing estate and school that the bomb just landed in, or after it landed, somebody bothered to dig a crater around it. It's pretty obvious that we're supposed to read Megaton as a crater created by the bomb hitting the ground, even if it's not realistic, because it's a Fallout game. Yeah, that's true! And they take certain liberties with science to create interesting environments and stories, but this guy is so desperate to prove me wrong that he's willing to argue that Megaton isn't what it blatantly is. Can see that. Not gonna lie. And declared twice. He mentions the insults and declare I'm an idiot for reading the Megaton crater as the game clearly expects the player to do so. Yeah, sorry, this is an example of a type of YouTube video I can't stand. A series of unconnected sneering nitpicks that don't bother addressing the actual substantive wider points to favor of digging for isolated counterexamples. But then, unfortunately, at a glance, the entire channel is just angry rants. I'll get into that after I finish this. He's not right here. He's not wrong here, I mean. So I guess aggressive negativity is his brand. See, that's where the quote in the beginning came from. Which isn't bad. I mean, if... Like, this is believable. You know, and I'll show that. So I guess aggressive negativity is his brand. Though this whole thing is kind of historically funny in a way. You see, years ago, there were a bunch of breakout hits on the internet that overwhelmingly embraced the format Angry Rant, where hating on popular stuff is the most hyperbolic way was itself very popular, and I never liked it because I like people being positive and talking about what they love, and as a result, I started Matin, where overwhelmingly I just show off games I think are cool and interesting, and when I play a game I don't enjoy, I generally just delete the footage and you never see it. But the angry rant trend spawned a giant pile of intimidators or imitators. Can't pronounce that. And now we've come full circle, and one of them has decided to launch a hyperbolic angry rant against one of my videos, which is popular to be deemed fair game. It's a circle of life. All we need now is somebody reading this to go and start a really positive YouTube channel. Go on, do it. I believe in you. And this is what Matin's talking about. This is his channel. Yep. Fallout 3 isn't better. Fallout 4 isn't better. Near complete analysis of Fallout 3, which is just smearing on it. You know, and look at all this. Look. We get it. He's a bad guy. You're going through a tough time with this dude. Thank God I'm not you. You know, and 8-hour streams. And look at what these are reaction streams, by the way. These little ones with the video. Yeah, these videos, they're reaction streams. I don't think any of these just warrant a response, especially this video. Recommend checking out this one for yourselves. You know? I don't know, maybe I will, for the fuck of it, because I think this shit's fun. Anywho, yeah, he didn't use ad hominems. He basically called you what you are. Is negative. Like, I'm just gonna do it for the hell of it, because this really drives it home. Okay, we're gonna go all the way to the point where he says this. This is actually hilarious. Okay, it's somewhere we're thinking here.
What it actually has in its gameplay, in its story, in its world, or in many cases, what it is missing from all of those, and critique that. It is just unfortunate we have seen Bethesda's trend of dumbing their games down further and further, and we have found Skyrim to be especially
subjective. I don't think they're dumbing their games down. They're, you know, releasing new stuff. But this is a different video. I just wanted to show what he says here.
In quality. Skyrim is without a doubt the most successful Elder Scrolls game to date, having been ported to just about every console and re-released so many times it's become a joke that even Bethesda has taken part in.
Introducing Skyrim. Very special edition. Also coming soon to Etch-a-Sketch, Motorola Pagers, and your Samsung smart refrigerator.
I don't know why he included this. We get it. It's not any funnier.
However, it's worth mentioning up front that just because something is successful does not mean it's good.
Okay, just
Skyrim
because something's successful also doesn't mean it's bad either.
is a game with many issues that will be discussed at length through the course of this analysis series. Now, how could such a beloved game really be so bad? Well, there could be
Trying to find it.
Now, to get this out of the way immediately, we are not telling you that you aren't allowed to like or even love
This is weird. Just listen.
Skyrim. We aren't some weirdos that want to destroy you for liking something we think is objectively bad.
See? That's what Matin's talking about.
That last part is important. Objectively bad.
Yep, and this is fun. This is not even a year ago yet. This is not even a fucking year ago. And you remade your Fallout 3 video. And you still go into shit like this? Skyrim's not objectively bad. There are a lot of people that liked it. Sorry. That's what I wanted to show you, and that's what John meant by his channel comes off as angry rants. And he's just negative. Skyrim's not objectively bad. But that's a different video.
And he cherry-picked what was probably my weakest argument in the original video to debunk. And he seems to have tried as hard as possible to make me look like some wild-eyed, angry, insane, hyperbolic ripoff of the angry video game nerd, or...
He didn't. Just read what's on the screen, people. He didn't do such a thing. He's upset that Matten argued the way an adult should. He didn't call him an idiot. He didn't say Kretosis is insane. He just said he comes off... It's just angry rants. And... Yeah, things you don't like is objectively bad. I mean, what I just showed is proof enough and reason enough for him to say this.
Admittedly, I was pretty harsh in my response, and if I could do the video again, I'd probably handle it differently. But nothing warrants that level of dishonest misrepresentation. I'd far prefer to be called an insufferable cunt.
Which you are.
Over someone attacking my character and misrepresenting me. He didn't even mention the fact that I insulted him. I totally would have understood if he didn't watch my video because of it, or even if he hated me because of it. But instead, he opted for the dishonest response of trying to make me look like a ranting and raving madman.
As I said in my video, he pointed out, and actually I didn't point out the second time, but twice, you've called him an idiot. What do you think's gonna happen, Kretosis, when that happens? Do you think people or he's gonna take that lightly or seriously? Dude. I wouldn't take you seriously at all.
I'd really appreciate it. It's actually from this Reddit post that I got the line you see in my intro of my videos, including this one.
Yep, and he brings that up too.
It's just such a wonderfully absurd and hyperbolic line. I can't help but find it funny.
Yeah, you can't because it's fucking true. You're not really even arguing or defending this. You're just saying he's saying things, but not even defending yourself. Misrepresentation of me. You don't explain how he's misrepresenting you.
Not as bad as Fallout 3.
You just show the thing. You just show the Reddit post, and when people read it, it's not as bad as you're making it seem. Which is funny, because I remember when I read it, and I remember in your older video, or some video of yours, you kept talking about this Reddit thing, and when I read it, guess what? I thought the complete opposite. I actually did think that he was after you for a short time until I read that. Holy fucking shit.
And as bad as his video was on it, Fallout 3 is at least more defensible than Fallout 4 is. While it does have some
take, I mean, I just think it's over dumb opinions.
Quality of life improvements, and a few positives here and there.
There's a lot of positives in Fallout 4.
As far as the story, world, and questing goes, this game is an order of magnitude worse. In fact, it's a complete disaster. I've been covering it extensively in my
respond to that, but this is a 4-hour video.
Analysis series, with more to go still, but I'm very familiar with what this game has to offer. So when I was told in my comments section many months ago that he was working on a Fallout 4 is better than you think video, I expected this to be much of the same. Fallacious and dishonest arguments, context in...
Okay, over an opinion. Like, this video, none of them deserve responses. Comments are more sufficeable. Videos like this, that's why you're a joke on Reddit. Like, seriously. This is funny.
Inconvenient to his arguments.
This is more funny than you finding funny that he, quote-unquote, misrepresented you. His excessive negativity is your brand. And you even prove it here. Like, he says the weirdest thing.
Being removed, and straight up
and if you put 2 and 2 together, it adds up.
intentions to make the game appear better than it is. I was quite excited to cover.
Well, that's the point of the fucking video, Keratosis. That's the goal, the end goal, to make Fallout 4 and 3 look better than they are, because he's trying to get people to give him a chance without listening to dumb shits like you. They don't have to. He's not forcing them. There's no gun to the head metaphor. He doesn't say that if you don't like Fallout 3, you're a piece of shit. Or you like bad games.
Cover this video long before it came out, because it proved to be an interesting, if frustrating, experience overall. And I feel I've learned a lot from both the process and
I'm just gonna say I could just ignore this.
feedback I've received. Now, the issues with Fallout 4 run so deep that any in-depth discussion on it seems as though it would be incredibly lengthy, which is why my series up until this point clocks in at over 7 hours long.
I'm the one to talk, but Which Fallout 4 video does he... Whatever, I'm not gonna do that. Well, I will, for the sake of it. Why not? His Fallout 4 analysis. I know he said that... Was this Fallout 4? He said that he was doing an analysis, which in my opinion is in complete retaliation to Madden. He even says it here. So he did make the analysis, so my assumption was correct. I actually thought that. I actually did think that he made these videos, which is not a way to do analyses, by the way. In my opinion, like, this makes you look salty. More salty than the 8-hour or 6-hour video. Like, you're just driving home these games suck. To you, at least. So... Part 1 of 6. He's got Part 2. He's got Part 3. Where's the other parts? This was a year ago. 3 years ago for Part 2. And then for Part 1. 3 years ago. And then Part 3 a year ago. Wow. Okay, I just think that's interesting, because this is not a true analysis. You say you're going to split this up. Okay, well, this isn't, enticing to watch these, because you clearly admitted this is in complete preparation and retaliation to Matt making a Fallout 4 video. That's strange.
Which might change, as I'm planning on remaking parts 1 and 2.
Alright,
in order.
I give him that. Go ahead, remake them. Your Skyrim video came out not even a year ago. It's probably going to be filled with objectively bads here, left and right. I don't know. Remake them. They're not remade.
In order to update them to my current standard. So, when I saw that John's video was only an hour and a half long, I was a bit baffled as to how he could fit the discussion into such a short time frame. Though as it turns out, he'd split it into 2 videos. Just about all of this response is aimed at the first of his 2 videos, as he does say a lot of ridiculous things in that video in order.
Get to the fucking point, please. Please, for God's sake. Like, you're drawing this out. Like, I think the intro's well over, but you don't timestamp it, so I don't know when your intro starts or where it ends. We're 9 minutes in, and you're not even talking about Fallout 4 or John's video. I want to see why this is bad, but you're dragging this out. I would, like, if I literally was just some fucking viewer who never thought of making a YouTube channel in my life, like, that was never my end goal, and I never would do it, I would not watch this up to this point. That's just me. Like, this is not... This is not etiquette. Or this is just babbling. Like, I don't care about his Fallout 3 video. That's not what I'm here for. Like, why...
to defend it. However, I was quite surprised to find the second video was actually quite critical of the game.
Yeah, and he's not going to react to it. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? You're not going to react to it.
Considering he went so far to defend Fallout 3, I was expecting much of the same here, but his second video is actually pretty good. He even points out to some things I didn't.
Yep. And you find an issue with this positive one. It's not a way to go about these, man. This is now really subjective. Like, I don't know how else to describe that. I mean, you enjoyed a second video. Okay, well that means you didn't enjoy the first one. What's with the 4-hour fucking response and the retaliation videos? You're obsessive over hating these games, man. Like, I understand the anger with Fallout 4 and 3, but at the same time, this is excessive. You know, a lot of... I think all of them are good games. It's best
pick
to
up
think
on
that
in my
way.
own videos. I know a channel with 500,000 subscribers doesn't need the recommendation of a channel with 3,000 subscribers, but I actually do recommend the second video, even if I don't agree with everything said in it.
Oh my god, then... Yeah, the reason you are not going to react to it is because of the fact that it's criticizing Fallout 4. You said that. That doesn't... This is weird.
The first of these two videos, however, is a complete disaster, and I'll be going through this.
Yeah, and this is the only video you react to. It's obvious. This video came out in February 26th. If there was really something wrong with the first video, wouldn't you think the second one would have the same issues? But no, it's criticizing Fallout 4. That's why he's not going after it.
Fairly meticulous.
So I can safely say that this video is not going to be fair.
To the point I may even comment on smaller statements he makes for nothing more
And
than
I'm not reacting to every little fucking thing he says, because that's utterly ridiculous. And
the sake of
we'll watch
accuracy,
more.
which some people might consider to be nitpicking.
Is, especially if you have a subjective argument. Like, you bring up a subjective argument. You haven't done any of that yet.
Lengthy discussion
Neither
on a
has he.
topic and refuting bad arguments is something that scares you. Now
Oh my god.
here's your chance to run away screaming. With that out of the way,
You haven't even started.
let's get into it.
Alright,
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John. This is Betty. A true and welcome to Fallout 4 is better than you think, which I think it is. And that itself is something of a miracle. You see, to my mind, Fallout 4 is a deceptively intricate game, filled with systems that don't look like they should work together. In fact, I'm gonna argue that in terms of mechanics, Fallout 4 might be the most dense game in the whole franchise. There's a lot here that's easy to overlook.
So judging from the title and approach to this video, this seems like it's largely going to be an in defense
Oh
of
my
type.
god. Yes, Kretosis, this is exactly what this sort of video is. Congratulations on figuring that out. That's funny. Like that's pretty funny. That's exactly what this video is. Well, I don't think so, actually. I think it's more of give it a chance. I don't know.
Video, much like his Fallout 3 video, rather than talking about what he
God, yeah, you're gonna bring up Fallout 3 again.
personally
By the
enjoyed
way,
about
he does bring it up again. Spoiler alert.
Fallout 4. The problem with his Fallout 3 video,
Yep, he's bringing up Fallout 3. The video is now started. It was when it comes to reaction videos, as soon as you play their first point, or the start of their video, if you're reacting to the entire thing, that means your video started. There is no reason to bring up past videos they've done. Like, you've discussed the problem with this video. You went into depth about it in the beginning. This is just aggravating, man. It's annoying. Like, I'm not mad, but at the same time, this is fucking annoying. And especially if I was somebody trying to watch this seriously and be like, this guy's video was wrong? What's wrong with this video?
is that through much
But I would have backed out a couple minutes ago. Because you can't say the things, you can't approach these correctly. In my opinion.
of his video He presented aspects of the game and arguments in general to make it appear as though Fallout 3 is far better than it actually is.
You've said that. You've said these... Are you just repeating yourself for the sake of it?
Everyone who criticized the game just missed all these great things about it.
Because they did. A lot of the criticisms I've seen of Fallout 3 and 4, especially the criticism that the games are linear, is a retarded, stupid statement. And you'd be a real big fucking idiot if you actually thought the games were actually that linear. Because if they were, you wouldn't be you'd be playing as Courier 6, but you would have to go follow the 96, the highway that gets you to Benny.
To give an example, he talks about the criticism that there isn't enough
But everybody's entitled to an opinion, even him.
choice in dialogue, and why that is wholly untrue, as you can learn information in the world to give additional options and quests. And he uses the example of Superhuman Gambit. If you found a
I'm not going to say anything to this. This is so pointless. This is the only thing I'm going to say. Is that this is so pointless. I have no idea fucking why Kretosis thinks it's a good idea to bring up his Fallout 3 video after the video started.
terminal log in a dungeon in a remote...
You've done this. You've said he said the game... You've already said John's poisoning the well. You could have thrown this in the beginning to get it out of the way, to actually get your points out, to get the video started, but no.
location, it gives an additional way of solving the conflict in that quest. What he fails to mention is that the example he uses to defend the game having hidden dialogue options is the one single example of this in the entire game that can be used to resolve a quest. A singular dialogue option being hidden in the world does not in any way make up for the fact that the entire rest of the game is lacking these options, and it also doesn't make up for the fact that it largely lacks these options at the base level.
Up, for fuck's sake. This has nothing to do with Fallout 4 or what John even said at all. I just zoned him out. I don't really give a fuck to hear what he has to say. If I'm incorrect to do so, because I just don't see the point in bringing up Fallout 3 when you've already played his start of the Fallout 4 video.
As well. Many of his arguments throughout this video will be much the same, and that he presents things in such a way that is super convenient to the narrative he's crafting here. He's going to make these systems sound far more intricate than they actually are. He says Fallout 4 might be the most mechanically dense game in the series, but that isn't inherently a good thing.
Nor is it a bad thing.
New features don't fix existing problems.
It's a game that takes a bit of time to understand, so that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna dive deeper into Fallout 4 than I've ever done before, and I hope that by the end, I might have sparked a renewed appreciation for how elegant some parts of this game are.
There's many words to describe Fallout 4, but elegant is certainly not one I'd choose.
It's your opinion.
In fact, he frequently uses this word throughout this video to describe otherwise basic systems, and it ends up being nothing more than a flowery buzzword to make the things he's describing sound better.
So,
no, because they are, and people really overlook them. You're an example and attest to that.
let's begin at the beginning. Actually, no. We need to begin earlier than that, because to understand Fallout 4, we have to understand how it came to be, the context it was made in, and the journey Bethesda travelled on the way to Boston.
Not necessarily. Knowing the creation process for Fallout 4 doesn't really change or
Why does this matter? Why are you reacting to this? This is not even a point that Fallout 4 is good. He's just saying we got to understand the journey. The point hasn't been fully established. You're just reacting to it for the sake of it. It's just laughably bad.
justify the final product in terms of how its mechanics, world, characters, and especially story work. If an aspect of the game is shit, such as the story,
which is opinionated, you think Fallout 4's story shit, not a lot of people do. Not a lot of people even think Fallout 3 or Skyrim's story shit. subjective.
Then you find out the lead writer and designer is a totally incompetent jackass who wrote a shit story because he made the dumb assumption that people wouldn't pay attention to it. That doesn't justify the story being shit.
Wouldn't that... I don't know, this is subjective. He's entitled to not like Fallout 4's story.
It just gives context as to why it's shit. The same principle applies to aspects such as world building and gameplay. It's not even a situation like New Vegas, where they only had 18 months to make the game, and aspects of the world suffered because of that limitation. Even then,
The world should have been done. Like, I would assume that the first thing you make when it comes to a game is the world. That's my assumption. I don't think that's true. I don't know. Pardon me. But I would assume it's the world.
then New Vegas' problems are still problems. This is no different for Fallout 4. The variety of problems with Fallout 4 are largely a result of Bethesda sacrificing too much in order to appeal to a wider market, as well as general poor decisions, such as a dialogue system both limited to and requiring only 4 options.
So, I want you to imagine for a moment what developing Fallout 4 was like. It's 2009, and work just wrapped up on the last bits of Fallout 3 DLC, and we know that work began immediately on Fallout 4, representing a good chance to make some big foundational changes to how the game should work next to Fallout 3. Obviously, good starting point. Try and figure out how people reacted to Fallout 3. Except there's a problem, because at a very high level, Fallout 3 players who want things to change in the next Fallout game fall into 2 camps, and these camps have very different desires. First up, with such high sales for Fallout 3 next to Fallout 1 and 2, we know there's a big group who are new to Fallout. Fallout 3 is their introduction to the whole Fallout universe. There's no one gaming background to these folks, of course, but there's an excellent chance that many of them would have been more familiar with shooters than RPGs.
While there likely were many new players who were more familiar with shooters, you failed to consider the fact that Fallout 3 came out on the heels of Oblivion, which was
Yeah, and your point is what?
just 2 years old at the time.
What is the point here? You're just saying it came out on the scope of Oblivion.
By this point, Bethesda had a strong following with games such as Morrowind and Oblivion. It can be inferred
Okay.
from this that many Bethesda
Then I assume what you're getting at is that Bethesda made Fallout more popular.
fans that moved over to Fallout would be familiar with RPGs. In fact, this is the exact way I found out about Fallout myself. I've been a huge fan of prior Bethesda games. I saw their logo on this game on a case in EB Games one day, and bought it for that reason alone.
And I say that purely as in 2007, 2 of the year's top 3 selling games were first-person shooters, while RPGs had fallen on hard times at the end of the 90s, struggling with the, at the time, much smaller PC market, but unable to transition to the increasingly lucrative console market, the exact phenomenon that led in part to the disintegration of Interplay, the original publishers of Fallout. When you see the common criticism of Fallout 3 that the shooting is clunky, there's a decent chance you're hearing from this group, because if your frame of reference is the shooters of 2007 or 2008, then yes, Fallout 3 would feel a bit clunky.
I think it was a general issue many people had with the game regardless of gaming background. You don't have to be
Yeah, and he's right. Kritosis is right here.
a huge FPS fan to tell when the shooting is shit.
Yeah.
And it's an
you're
aspect
right.
of Fallout 3 that
But the shooting in Fallout 3 is kind of arguable. Was it intentionally put in that way because you play as somebody who's never shot an actual gun? Or is the shooting actually that bad?
is frequently criticized by both FPS fans and non-FPS fans alike. It's also notable
Source to that. Well, I don't think you could source anything when it comes to shit like this. It's just what you think is right and wrong.
that this claim is entirely based on speculation.
Then why are you bringing it up? Why? What? This is going to be a bad argument already. I mean, this already was, but it's getting entirely worse.
By 2015, of course, it would have been much worse, and Fallout 3
Yeah, he didn't need to react to that. If it was on speculation, why fucking mention it? Why react? Why?
shooting mechanics would have seemed hopelessly out of date. So, if
Speculation.
you want Fallout 4 to succeed, you're gonna need better, smoother, more accessible gunplay. But hang on, as I discussed when I was arguing that Fallout 3 is better than you think, part of the reason that shooting is a bit clunky in Fallout 3 is by design. You're playing as a character who's brand new to the world, and level 2, they shouldn't be able to nail a mole rat in the eye from 100 meters.
This is a bafflingly awful argument. I'm kind of surprised he's...
It makes sense to me, pal. Don't know how you could... how it doesn't make sense to you. He's saying that you play as somebody that has never shot a gun.
actually doubling down on this from his Fallout 3 video. See, the thing about making
How is he doubling down? How? You need to kind of say what he said in his Fallout 3 video, or show a source.
video games is that
Oh my god, he's gonna make me go back. Okay, we're at 1707. Okay, we'll say, okay, I think 1706. There we go.
games is that
Okay, from his Fallout 3 video, see the thing about...
games is that typically you want your audience to have fun, and intentionally making certain
People did! People had fun with Fallout 3. Are you fucking kidding me?
systems,
And why are you harping on Fallout 3 still? It's just
such as shooting,
a bit much.
so clunky, awkward, and generally
This isn't about
annoying,
Fallout 3.
regardless if it's intentional or not, is only going to drive people away, and it's counterintuitive to game design. I can back this up, too. One of the reasons many people drop Morrowind in the first half hour is because they don't like the accuracy being tied to the dice roll system.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point. But it doesn't mean the argument's bad.
It's annoying for them to see their weapons physically connecting with an enemy and dealing no damage. This is something they changed in Oblivion. Now, shooting in Fallout 3 isn't quite that bad, but it still isn't great. To argue that it's intentionally designed to be bad because your character's a 19-year-old kid seems dishonest.
He didn't say that. He said that you've never shot in a gun in your life. You have, like, besides a BB gun. Those are different. You misrepresented his argument right here at 1752. Or I'd say 1748-ish.
It seems like a desperate attempt to defend a poorly made system that can't be defended otherwise. There's nothing wrong with admitting that a game you like is flawed. On top of this, there is zero evidence to indicate that Bethesda purposely implemented poor gunplay.
Okay, then why are you arguing? If you can't prove this, then what's your argument? Like, both of these fall flat.
To reflect a lack of experience based on your time in the vault.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's true. What the fuck?
Characters who tag into weapons-related skills will still suffer from Fallout 3's poor gunplay. Bethesda specifically went over
It's subjective. I don't even think it's that poor. I was playing it a couple days ago, and I didn't see an issue with the shooting. I was playing it on my Xbox, which isn't modded. So...
their way to get help with the shooting from id for Fallout 4, because Fallout 3 was criticized for its poor shooting. And no one is arguing that you should be a crack shot at level 2. The criticism is over the general clunkiness of the gameplay, not tying skills into your performance. This is yet another straw man argument by him.
I think this is... You're presenting a straw man. You can't prove it. You can't prove it either. You're also presenting a straw man. Like, if you can't prove it, Why argue it?
It's literally built into the game that you have to invest skill points to boost accuracy, lower spread, and reduce
And
weapon
to be honest, I don't know why John's talking about Fallout 3 here either. I think it's a little odd.
sway. You're not an amazing shot until your character is. As a result of that, if you make the shooting immediately accessible, you've undermined the entire foundation of Fallout.
Kritosis, how can you think the shooting's that bad? It's intentionally going left and right, to and fro.
Fallout being an RPG, that what you can do depends on your character's ability as well as the player's skill.
Not necessarily. Even New Vegas
Not necessarily.
was able to handle its shooting mechanics better than Fallout 3 did,
It also had issues too.
by tweaking aspects such as the accuracy and weapon spread.
Fallout 3 and New Vegas' shooting mechanic was considered both to be very clunky and bad.
As well as
Just
adding
excusing
iron sight
it.
aiming over the incredibly lazy slight zoom on the screen Bethesda did in Fallout
You
3.
aim, but you don't aim down the sights. It's not a zoom. It clearly shows, like, if you have the 10 millimeter pistol in Fallout 3, both hands on the motherfucker. I don't understand, but okay.
3. Despite this, New Vegas, although to a lesser extent than 3, still generally has unrefined gunplay. Skills being tied to performance isn't the issue, it's the fact that gunplay as a whole feels clunky and unintuitive.
Which brings us to the
Your
second
opinion.
camp, the
Same with mine about New Vegas' shooting being clunky.
long-standing fans of Fallout, or RPGs of Interplay, or RPGs of the 90s in general, who have exactly the opposite complaint. When you hear the common talking point that Fallout 3 was a dumbed-down shooter experience that wasn't a proper Fallout game, that may well be somebody from this camp talking. And what they want is a proper RPG experience, which is traditionally characterised by your abilities being entirely defined by the character you're playing as.
Now why do you think that is? It's not tied solely to how shooting works. Despite improvements, New Vegas still has similar gunplay to Fallout 3. Yet, New Vegas still has less overall criticism by RPG fans.
It has criticism. I think it had more criticism because New Vegas was not widely praised when it came out. It was kind of tossed aside until Fallout 4 released.
I've never
Well, I
seen
wouldn't say tossed aside, but I would say it wasn't brought into the forefront until Fallout 4.
anyone call New Vegas a dumbed-down shooter. This shows that there can be a balance between the two. Fallout 3 received the criticism that it's a dumbed-down shooter experience and not a proper Fallout game, because much of Fallout 3 was severely lacking in choice, consequences, world building, and much of the gameplay was about gunning down generic enemies, rather
Not really. Not all the side quests, Kritosis. This is why I think he hasn't played the game. Or didn't play it recently.
than solving conflicts or engaging with groups trying to survive in the world. There's a night and day
That's your preference. You want to play that sort of Fallout game. Sorry, I think the people who have really more of a say in Fallout are the people making the motherfucker. Because people want way too many things in their Fallout game. Like, yeah, choices and stuff would have been nice. You know, kind of like in New Vegas, where it would have an impact at the end game, but your choices somewhat do in Fallout 4. But
difference between the gameplay, world building, characters, questing, and story of Fallout 3 and New Vegas. The main story of Fallout 3 featured amazing quests, such as do a dungeon to get the Galaxy News radio, do a dungeon to get the satellite dish for the radio, clear out all these enemies in a dungeon so the scientists can work on Project Purity, do a
you're
dungeon to get the Gek, and do a dungeon to talk to the president and follow the giant murder bot and watch him destroy the baddies.
You're going off the main quest. Do side quest... Now, this is my question to you. Do side quests, do they function like that in Fallout 3? Or are they open-ended? Like to know.
New Vegas, by comparison, had you solving conflicts between groups in any manner of ways.
Yeah, because they were side quests. You just described the entire main quest to Fallout 3. New Vegas has a lot of interference with side quests along the way in the main story, which is a smart idea, but a lot of them are side quests, and that's where most of your choices and decisions kind of really matter. At least in Fallout games, at least that's the way it seems to me.
Be it peaceful or violent. You could take the kill everything approach if you decided to, but in many cases, multiple...
That's true. New Vegas, you're right. Yeah, New Vegas has more of a pacifist sort of thing where you could have a pacifist playthrough. It's not anything new, and it's different devs.
Peaceful solutions can be found. The point is that many felt Fallout 3 was a lackluster RPG because much of the game felt like a series of mindless tasks, whereas the quests of New Vegas...
You're referring... If the quests you brought up are what you're talking about as mindless tasks, then you're not looking deep into Fallout 3 at all. Because, yeah, you're going to have a linear playthrough if you continue to play the main story and only set yourself to play the main story. Like, you haven't brought in any side quests that do this exact issue you're talking about.
Vegas had a variety of choices in and out of dialogue that promoted roleplay. Dungeons in Fallout
that was nice.
3 were mostly just locations filled with generic enemies and a bunch of loot, with
not all the time. Not every place is filled with generic enemies.
little more reason for existing than to populate the world. Dungeons in New Vegas were often the focal point of quests, and were designed to look like real places that might have existed in the world, rather than sprawling dungeons.
And then you didn't look at the map? Fucking Fallout New 4 is said to be, and this is the most relevant game, since this is what we're talking about, it looked like Boston. And you're saying New Vegas had more realistic locations. I think all of them did. I think that's kind of a you opinion, not what everybody thinks.
It's rare to be sent to a dungeon where the goal was as simple as collecting an item or killing an enemy. A classic example being Come Fly With Me, where it starts off as a simple quest of clearing a dungeon of ghouls, but upon arriving at REPCON, the situation becomes more complex as the ghouls aren't all feral, and in order for them to leave peacefully, they need you to clear the dungeon of Nightkin, who in turn will not leave peacefully until you help them find what they're looking for. And this is
until you play through the game multiple times and realize there's only 3 ways to resolve that quest. Or 4 if you count killing them all.
It's further complicated when what they're looking for is in a room guarded by a ghoul who doesn't want to leave without his friend. What started off as a quest to kill what you assumed to be generic enemies turned out to be a complex, layered, and multi-staged conflict between 2 intelligent groups that can be reasoned with and solved peacefully. The point I'm getting at here is that there's very solid ground to argue the point that Fallout 3 is a dumbed-down shooter,
Your opinion.
and not a proper Fallout experience.
The reason I'm not reacting to what he's saying is because this is just really his opinion more than anything. It'd be kind of dumb if I reacted to every single thing he said.
And the gunplay is by far not the sole reason. Beyond the shooting side of things, Fallout 3 does not offer anything of note, especially compared to previous entries of the time.
So, basically, who thinks it's a good idea for Fallout 4 to be an immediately accessible modern shooter where player skill translates into an immediate gameplay advantage? And who thinks the exact opposite, that shooting should have a much smaller part of the game to create a more diverse RPG experience where ability is a function of long-term character building decisions? Then Skyrim launches in 2011 and becomes one of the most successful games of all time, so does that mean we should take notes from that? And just when you think things can't get any worse, those bastards over at Obsidian manage, in 18 months, to make a Fallout game that just happens to be one of the best video games ever created.
So John seems to be trying to frame this as though it was this huge dilemma for Bethesda on what to do with Fallout 4 in development.
Okay, this is speculation. You don't know this. I'm guaranteeing you he's going to say that Bethesda knew what they were doing. I don't think so. I think this is reasonable to say. I'm not going to say that's the case because we don't know that. Neither does he. Another fucking stupid argument to bring up. Because neither of us know.
Even though Bethesda had been simplifying their games more and more with each release, for
to you, apparently being innovative is just not in these critics or people that think like this strong suits, at least with the Fallout games. It's just not.
well over a decade at this point. Morrowind was still a complex RPG, but it had been simplified from Daggerfall. Oblivion had been more simplified from Morrowind, to the point of no longer being
because they're innovating.
a deep and complex
Because Bethesda's not boring.
RPG, and more of a casual RPG that anyone could jump into. And that's not bad on its own, but it brought Bethesda more success, and
Yeah, it did. And your point here is what?
incentivized continuing on their trend of making each release more simple, dumbing down both the RPG mechanics and the writing. The shortest jump seems
When it comes to writing and storytelling, it's all opinion. It's all opinion. Because there be people that like shit stories. Okay, I'm not saying Fallout 3 and 4 and, 76 have shit writing. Just, when it comes to that, it's opinionated. It is.
seems to have been between Oblivion and Fallout 3. Bethesda still kept much of the RPG mechanics, but the story was a considerable downgrade in terms of writing quality. After that, Skyrim further stripped out and simplified RPG mechanics and dumbed down its story, and Fallout 4 was only the
Simplified, I think they changed it. Because they don't want the same shit over and over again like you guys want. You want the same fucking game over and over where slight changes are made. It's kind of how it seems. Like, I think it would have gotten boring if Bethesda kept all the things from Fallout 1 and put it into the newer games. I think that'd be kind of... It'd get old after a while.
next step in their trend of doing so. Now John does something here in this clip to try to frame the narrative so as to be convenient to his argument. He specifically says,
Then Skyrim launches in 2011 and becomes one of the most successful games of all time, so does that mean we should take notes from that? And just when you think things can't get any worse, those bastards over at Obsidian manage, in 18 months, to make a Fallout game that just happens to be one of the best video games ever created.
the framing being, Skyrim came out, then New Vegas did.
No. It was a mistake then. More than anything. Because you don't know that, neither do I. I don't think that was the framing. I think you have very negative framing. Like, the entire beginning was just set and knocked down, is what it seems like.
He doesn't explicitly say that it happened this way, but he presents his information so as to
Okay.
appear that way.
No, then if that... It didn't happen... Let's listen to what he says. We're gonna have to go back. We're gonna have to go back a little bit.
The best video games ever created.
Alright, so we gotta go back. Let's go back here.
From that, and just when you think things can't get any worse, those bastards over at Obsidian manage, in 18 months, to make a Fallout game that just happens to be one of the best video games ever created.
So John seems to be trying to frame this as though it was
Man, this is pissing me off a bit.
The best video games ever created.
that might have existed in the world, rather than sprawling dungeons. Or it's rare to be sent to a dungeon where the goal was as simple as collecting an item or killing an enemy. A classic example being Come Fly With Me, where it starts off as a simple quest of clearing a dungeon of ghouls, but upon arriving at Repcon, the situation becomes more complex as the ghouls aren't all feral, and in order for them to leave peacefully, they need you to clear the dungeon of Nightkin, who in turn will not leave
Just
peacefully until
explaining
you
a
help them find what
quest.
they're looking for. And this is further complicated when what they're looking for is in a room guarded by a ghoul who doesn't want to leave without his friend.
Yeah, his point
What
is
started
that
off as a quest to kill what you assume to be generic
gives
enemies
you-
turned out to be a complex, layered,
Yeah.
and multi-stage conflict between two intelligent groups that can be reasoned with
yeah, but
and solved
Fallout
peacefully.
4 and 3 have
The
that
point I'm getting at here
occasionally.
is that there's very
I'll say
solid
New
ground to
Vegas
argue the
have
point
it
that
more.
Fallout 3 is a dumbed-down shooter
has it
and not a
more.
proper Fallout experience, and the gunplay is by far not the sole reason. Beyond the shooting side of things, Fallout 3 does not offer anything of note, especially compared to previous entries of the time.
So, basically, who thinks it's a good idea for Fallout 4 to be an immediately accessible modern shooter where player skill translates into an immediate gameplay advantage? And who thinks the exact opposite, that shooting should have a much smaller part of the game to create a more diverse RPG experience where ability is a function of long-term character building decisions? Then Skyrim launches in 2011 and becomes one of the most successful games of all time, so does that mean we should take notes from that? And just when you think things can't get any worse, those bastards over at Obsidian manage, in 18 months, to make a Fallout game that just happens to be one of the best video games ever created.
Okay, he didn't frame that New Vegas came out after Skyrim. Seems like it, but I think he knows the community he's talking about. So they're pretty aware of when New Vegas came out.
So John seems to be trying to frame this as though it was this huge dilemma for Bethesda on what to do with Fallout 4 in development.
No.
Even though Bethesda had been
didn't.
simplifying their games more and more with each release
an
for well
opinion.
over a decade at this point. Morrowind was still a complex RPG, but it had been simplified from Daggerfall. Oblivion had been more simplified from Morrowind to the point of no longer being a deep and complex RPG, and more of a casual RPG
It
that
became
anyone
more
could
of an open world RPG to the point where you didn't even know what the fuck to do besides the main quest. It's just what it seems like these people argue.
jump into. And that's not bad on its own, but it brought Bethesda more success, and incentivized continuing on their trend of making each release more simple, dumbing down both the RPG mechanics and the writing. The shortest jump seems to have been between Oblivion and Fallout 3. Bethesda still kept much of the RPG mechanics, but the story was a considerable downgrade in terms of writing quality.
Your opinion.
After that, Skyrim
not
further
fact.
stripped out
It is not fact. Did not mean to do that.
and simplified
See how long I've
RPG
been
mechanics
recording
and
for really quick. Want to take too much of your time? An hour? Okay. We'll give it one more.
dumbed down its story, and Fallout 4 was only the next step in their trend of doing so. Now John does something here in this clip to try to frame the narrative so as to be convenient to his argument.
No.
He specifically says,
Then Skyrim launches in 2011 and becomes one of the most successful games of all time, so does that mean we should take notes from that? And just when you think things can't get any worse, those bastards over at Obsidian manage, in 18 months, to make a Fallout game that just happens to be one of the best video games ever created.
the framing being, Skyrim came out, then New Vegas did. He doesn't explicitly say that it happened this way, but he presents
Then
it
it was a mistake. Over incentive, maybe? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And you're just guessing too, but I'm not going to do that.
information so as to appear that way.
You're guessing, and there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just more of your answer's going to fall through because that's pretty much what's going to happen. You can't prove this. He didn't pretty much say it in that way, but the framing was, who cares? It was a mistake. Are you saying you're stupid and you had to look that up? Or what? I think he knows the community he's talking to.
New Vegas released in October of 2010, and Skyrim released in November of 2011. This will become more important momentarily, because he's going to try and frame this as if Fallout 4's development changed due to New Vegas, more so than Skyrim's immense success.
I think they did because,
Now a load of those new Fallout 3 players have had the chance to experience a really good Fallout game with strong RPG elements. and many of them really liked what they saw. And now things are even more impossible, because previously, the old Fallout fans were in a tiny minority, but now, thanks to New Vegas, there's literally millions of people who have played a Fallout game that's a lot more RPG-ish, and you can't ignore that many people, so now Fallout 4 also has to somehow embrace what people loved in New Vegas, even though New Vegas didn't even exist at the start of Fallout 4's development.
See, this, combined with how he described New Vegas coming after Skyrim.
No, he didn't. It's not confirmable. You even said he didn't address it that way, and if that's the case, then it could have been a mistake. It's a could've. Could've. Not a for sure thing. It's a could've. It's not for sure.
Becomes an incredibly dishonest framing of the situation.
That could have been a mistake. You don't know that. You're being dishonest here saying this.
Even if development of Fallout 4 had started before the release of New Vegas,
it did. It literally, it was in pre-development in 2009. How long did 2009? 7 years to make it, which makes sense. I'm pretty sure they saw the praise New Vegas got, and they had to implement what those people liked in that game into Fallout 4 or improve upon it. But they were already in pre-development.
It still would have been in its early stages.
But I don't know. I don't know. We all don't know. He's arguing like he fucking knows. And he's the definitive Fallout god. He's not. He's far from it.
Just to get a bit of a timeline established here, Fallout 3 was released in 2008.
Hey, we know. This is why he didn't say this, dude. I feel stupid now. Like, I'm not stupid. I'm sorry, you need him to, like, speak in words that you can understand? Such as, basically spoon-feeding this information that's been known for years? I don't care about this. I know when New Vegas came out.
New Vegas in 2010, Skyrim in 2011, and Fallout 4 in 20...
He's really hammering this home. He's really pissed that John said that Skyrim came out before New Vegas, even though it probably was a mistake. He didn't even fucking frame it that way. I know the information. Okay, I know New Vegas came out before Skyrim. I'm pretty sure all of us do.
2015. Much of Bethesda's development time following Fallout 3 was likely spent on Skyrim.
But with Fallout 4 in the background.
Fallout 4 likely being in pre-production stages at best prior to the release of New Vegas.
I don't know about that. You don't know either.
Likely only kicked into high gear either as Skyrim was nearing completion or after it was completed. The thing about game development...
It was after it was completed. It was completed before it came out. When it comes out doesn't mean that's when it was just completed.
Is that very little is set in stone, and there's plenty of examples of major changes to games happening mid-development, such as how most of Halo 2's development was scrapped, and the Halo 2...
Fuck. Who knows, maybe they started it because they had small things to work with Skyrim. It came out in like 2 years. Who knows? I don't know. Neither does he. Neither does John. Neither, or Matten.
we actually got was made in only 10 months.
And the Halo 2 we actually got, who cares? This has nothing to do with Fallout.
These mid-development changes can either be disastrous, such as in the case of Anthem, or for the better.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's irrelevant to this particular discussion.
I'll give him credit, that's pretty true. Yeah, mid-development's not really good.
Anyways, because again, Fallout 4 was in its earliest stages of development, at most before Skyrim wrapped up development, so there was a lot of time to adjust to customer feedback regarding New Vegas.
I don't know, you don't know that. He's stating this as it's 100% fact. It's not. He doesn't know this. I guarantee you, he's the last person to know.
Put all of that together, and that's the context of Fallout 4's creation. Just imagine the stress of that.
The context is Bethesda had been on a trend of simplifying their games, and Obsidian made a really good, well-written and complex RPG that
even though you guys can't pull out a cohesive argument, and I'm not even Well, I guess you can say I'm trying, but I don't want to get too deep into this. I mean, this speaks for itself.
Far surpassed their previous 2 releases, and every release since.
I mean, the reason I say that is because this is just pointless argumentation. It's like you're being deceitful by saying he has to specifically say that Fallout New Vegas came out before Skyrim. You even said he might have, even though he didn't frame it that way, then it's up for debate if he even meant it that way.
In terms of quality writing,
God, the arguments in this fucking video are just goddamn bad. I mean, to the point of, like, I can't see how anybody would suffer through any of this guy's shit. I mean, some good points here, but the streams are where the meat is.
And role-playing elements, and despite the fact so many people liked New Vegas, they disregarded many of its aspects and continued on their trend of simplifying their games?
No, they didn't. They probably had the world and the mechanics worked out. You don't fucking know that. Neither do I. But that's a counterclaim. Or counter-argument I just countered you with. Like...
So, what did Bethesda do? Well, they did precisely what they always do. They threw everything out and started again.
I'm gonna slap a big ol' X to doubt and a citation fucking needed on that one.
Yep, and you're the king of not having any. Like, I'm not joking. You say things and you don't cite them. At all.
This is a rather bold claim that John completely fails to substantiate or prove.
No, it's a theory. You can't prove this either. You weren't in the dev room. You weren't sitting in a cubicle or whatever it is Bethesda does, and wherever their desks and their fancy computers are. You weren't sitting there. You don't know. None of this has been proven. Nothing has been said of this. I can't believe I have to explain that.
Prove. It's just a statement he throws into the video because... Well, I'm not
Just like what you're doing. You can't prove any of this shit. You can't back this up. Video because, well...
really sure, but I suppose it supports his...
Okay, then why are you reacting to this? Why? Why are you reacting to something you're not totally sure about that can't be disproven from either of you? Or proven?
his argument. Now who knows? Maybe John is entirely right here. Maybe he researched the facts and this really is the case. But I don't know, and that's a problem because if he's going to make such a bold statement, he should back it up with evidence.
You do too. You're saying that wasn't the case. You even said that the shooting was objectively bad. You didn't say it outright, but you implied that a lot of people didn't like it, which is bullshit.
I searched for evidence of this myself and couldn't find anything.
Yeah, then why are you talking about it and trying to talk like you know the answer?
He could provide a clip of Pete Hines or Todd Howard saying that's what happened, or an article or something, but he doesn't.
Well, neither do you. The whole shooting argument, you couldn't prove that's what Bethesda did. And you didn't even explain really well why it's so bad. You just said it's bad.
So I'm inclined to believe this is something he
It's
just invented.
Fucking geek bantering. I'm a geek myself. But I can't stand this.
He acts as though New Vegas being so well liked by fans would have greater influence upon Fallout 4. But Skyrim
It should have. That's what he's saying. It should have.
came after New Vegas.
Remember, he won't review the second video because it criticizes Fallout 4. He is literally, at this point, digging for anything. At least this is what it seems like to me. You're digging for whatever you can to attack Fallout 4. If there's a problem with this, there should have been a problem with the second video as well. That's how these work.
And was wildly and commercially successful, far more than New Vegas. So wouldn't that have had more impact on the development of Fallout 4?
I think he's talking about Skyrim. I don't give a fuck. Like,
With-
actually, we're gonna have to go back.
Is that very little is set in stone, and there's plenty of examples of major changes to games happening mid-development, such as how most of Halo 2's development was scrapped,
Pip-Boy, superficially the two look very similar, but Fallout 3 and New Vegas look even thing out and started again.
I'm gonna slap a big ol' X to doubt and a citation fucking needed on that one. This is a rather bold claim that John completely fails to substantiate or prove.
Yeah, but
it's just a statement.
Hold on, another thing I'd like to add is that you've been making bold claims yourself. You saying that he's mistreating a game is a pretty bold claim. And you can't prove that. Neither in your comment section. We'll go over those eventually, but...
He throws into the video because... well, I'm not really sure, but I suppose it supports his argument. Now who knows? Maybe John is entirely right here. Maybe he researched the facts and this really is the case.
Dude?
But I don't know,
care.
and that's a problem because if he's going to make such a bold statement, he should back it up with evidence.
You can't either.
I searched for evidence of this myself and couldn't find anything. He could provide
You can't back this up. Why you complain and talk about it? Just say that you can't prove this, and then move on.
a clip of Pete Hines or
Like you're really hammering this home. You can't prove it.
Howard saying that's what happened, or an article or something, but he doesn't. So I'm inclined to believe this is something he just invented. He access
He didn't invent it. Like, it's common sense. When you think that'd be the case, no, probably not, because it's Bethesda.
New Vegas being so well liked by fans would have greater influence upon Fallout 4. But Skyrim came after New Vegas, and was wildly and commercially successful, far more than New Vegas. So wouldn't that have had more impact on the development of Fallout 4? With Fallout 4's liberal use of Radiant quests, Skyrim's influence is far from hidden.
Now, this point kinda slips past people a lot. Specifically, I've seen
You know, because Radiant quests aren't bad. They keep the game alive.
a lot of discussion
They give you things to do, believe it or not.
about Fallout 3 versus Fallout 4 and what got added or taken away, and I think this is completely the wrong starting point for a discussion about Fallout 4. Yes, at the absolute surface level, Fallout 4 and Fallout 3 seem to have a lot in common. Vaults, ruins, jumpsuit, 10mm pistol, dog, mole rats, raiders, vats, compass, Pip-Boy. Superficially, the two look very similar. But Fallout 3 and New Vegas look even more similar, and they're hugely different from each other. Fallout 4 is a brand new thing, and some people bring that up like it's inherently bad, like revealing that Fallout 4 diverged from some of the exact design choices of a turn-based RPG from 1997 is a big takedown gotcha moment, and as strange as it is that this needs to be pointed out at all, I don't think Bethesda were trying to be as faithful as possible.
So this is something it seems John likes to do a lot, but he's framing the opposition as though they're arguing from a position they don't actually hold. Or in other words,
I have a really strong vibe. You have no idea. Like, you're just saying this.
strawmanning the critics of
A
Fallout
strong feeling.
4.
It's just
Many of
vibe.
the issues with Fallout 4 have little to do with the fact that they diverged from the style of the original games, and more with the fact that the systems of Fallout 4 are unimpressive on their own merits. There are many complaints about the entire skill system being removed, for example.
That's opinionated. People probably like perks. Oh. And there are people that do.
But much of that has to do with how they decide to replace it. But at the same time, you also have to consider the fact that taking a beloved RPG series and dumbing down or stripping out everything that made the series what it was is going to piss off a lot of people. Most of the people who have issues
Yeah, for people who really devote their lives to video games.
with Fallout 4,
I think it's bad. I think it is in the term. Like, the voice acting wasn't great. And yeah, the Radiant quests are annoying. But it's still a game. And who gives a shit? Like, there was content in it.
don't dislike it simply because it tries something different, but because it tries something different poorly. New Vegas totally removed the big and small gun skills, and merged them
And what?
into a general gun skill. Yet, this change is hardly criticized because the new gun skill was not poorly implemented. Why would I have issues with Fallout 4's new systems if they ended up being good? Because they're new? Again, New Vegas is different from Fallout 1 and 2, and yet the game is, by your own admission, beloved, and it's often argued to be the best game in the whole series. I've always really hated this argument that the people who hate something simply hate it because it's new or different.
That's why. That's exactly. You're Like, I see where John's coming from now. Yeah, some people do. Some people do. And I think you're one of them. Like, you don't like any of the mechanics in 4, that's because it's new. It has new systems that no other Fallout game had.
It's such a dishonest and fallacious argument, and seems so.
No, it's not. It's kind of dishonest to say that it's a dishonest argument, or dishonest, fallacious argument. I just don't understand.
Only exists
Why you can't back this up.
as an attempt to discredit legitimate criticism. Seriously, this argument needs to die a quick death.
It's to turn people, or to turn people to give Fallout 4 another chance.
People who are fans of a series typically want new things in that series. The issue is never that there's something new, but the quality of that content. People might not
What he's
all.
saying is right, but him saying that John's being dishonest, you know.
Always have good reasons for disliking something, but I'm sure if you were to really dig into the complaints people have, you'd see there's often a fairly logical reason for it, such as character assassination, disrespecting the legacy of what came before,
You were nothing but a relic from a deleted timeline.
or just in general bad writing. A lot
Why
of
are you bringing movies into this? This is video games, man.
people tend to write off criticism or hatred for something as though people are looking for something to be angry about, as if people enjoy
That's what you're doing here.
simply hating things, and this is rarely the case. Sure, it can be fun to mock and laugh at something absurdly
my
awful, like Ride to Hell Retribution, but generally
the
speaking,
fuck?
and as weird as this
Dude,
might
get
sound,
on with the
oftentimes
video.
hatred for something ends
You're
up coming.
hammering this point. Like, it looks like that's the case. You're going to an extensive level to defend this, though this isn't the case. We like new things, but they have to be put in right. Then that's subjective. And you're hammering it home. Why? Like, you spent, I think, 2 fucking minutes talking about this. You brought up movies. Yeah, 2 minutes. Almost 3. Talking about this, dude. What?
From a place of love. When people criticize Bethesda Fallout, they didn't wake up one morning and decide, oh yeah, I'm gonna hate the fuck out of this game. It comes from frustration that something they love isn't being handled properly.
No, it's you guys can't get the fact that things change. GTA 5 GTA changed over the course of years. I know, stupid comparison, but that's how life is. Innovation seems to be what keeps games alive. It's just a personal thing. Like, if you don't like the perk system, you don't like the crafting, that's you. Or the story. If you think the story's bad, that's a personal opinion.
I would far prefer to love the fuck out of Fallout 3 and 4, and spend hours gushing about how great they are.
You don't, though. Your content is literally the definition of negativity. Like I showed in the Skyrim video he did, he states the game's objectively bad. So he's full of shit here, and I just don't get why he's including this. Like, we don't care.
But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. These are 2 extremely flawed games, to the point that any legitimate
Yeah, and you forgot New Vegas is flawed, too. You mean 3 extremely flawed games.
positives to discuss are vastly
They all have
overshadowed
problems.
by their errors.
This isn't a secret.
Not to me. It's my opinion. I mean, that kind of disproves what you're saying about this being a bad game. And he's hammering it home like it's true. Like, the tone in his voice, the way he's wording things. It's like he's talking like he is the answer to all. It's what it seems like.
Ahead of Fallout 4, they did a press tour broadcasting this. Say, in an interview with the official Xbox YouTube channel in November 2015, Pete Hines could not have put his cards more clearly on the table. Every game gets treated from scratch. There are no sacred cows. I think this is part of Todd Howard's belief that you can get stale by staying in one spot.
So first off, If he is suggesting that we should have anticipated the changes that came with Fallout 4, I want to point out that the video John is referencing here only has about 73,000 views after being available for just over 5 years now.
Why does this matter? Why does the views on this matter? I think what matters is what Pete Hines said. I don't think the views matter, because you want to compare that? Look at your popular fucking videos. 265k. You know, I'm doing it too, fuck it. Why not? I could do it. 443k, 13.2k subscribers. Like, you have two popular ass videos that could have sparked you off on YouTube. But you don't have anywhere near that. You don't even get the views. Your stags suck. To be honest, in comparison to your video responses, I guess you could call these that. Whatever. Stupid as fuck. It's like, God. Don't know why this is a point to bring up. It's mainly what Pete Hines said. It's not the views.
And it was released the day before Fallout 4 released. And according to Steam charts, the peak player count was close to 472,000 on PC alone. If we were to assume everyone who viewed that video made a purchase and only played on PC...
Yeah, assuming. Can't...
Then that would be only 15.6% of the player base that saw this video. This is generously skewing the numbers in John's favor here too, because not every single view translates to a sale, and this is completely disregarding other contributing factors.
He didn't say specifically that people should have watched this video. He took a quote from it, and you're getting upset.
Such as how many people played on consoles or overall sales. At best, this video he's referencing, where Pete Hines could not have put his cards more clearly on the table, was only viewed by a small fraction of people who actually bought and played Fallout 4. If you're trying to argue that major changes to a new entry in a long-time-running RPG franchise have been clearly telegraphed in advance, I don't think that a video with a scant amount of views as compared to overall sales released the day before the...
Yes, as the person who's made two popular videos and you aren't even near half of the sub count or views of that in your sub count. You know, I'm the one to speak. I only have 22 subs, and I'm grateful for that. But it's, if you want to talk like that, this is what's going to happen. I just think it's funny you bring that up, and then kind of in the same almost situation. Like, your stags have less views than that interview.
Game's release is sufficient evidence. Many people had their pre-orders in by this point. Some of us were hoping for Bethesda to take greater influence from New Vegas. Some of us went to a midnight release. If these changes were such a core aspect of taking Fallout in a new direction, why were they not discussed at the E3 reveal? The other problem with this statement is
that's not how marketing works. They knew that. The Bethesda knows. They know. They know how vile gaming communities can be. They've had their own... Not everybody in the Bethesda camp is toxic. Not everybody in the New Vegas camp is toxic. Same with the classic fans. They just know. They just know. And they wouldn't make sales. That's why. It's not a bad thing. I mean, that's how marketing goes. Or at least marketing your product should be known. I mean, there are people that market... pills that end up killing other people, like weight loss pills where you just put shit into your body. Don't see why, like they're treating it as it's that bad, and it's not.
Is that it's an appeal to authority.
There's way more worse things that people lie about and sell to people in this world, believe me.
Believe there are no sacred cows, so that means it's open season to change any aspect about the series? Would you still be defending this if they released Fallout 4 as a dating sim? Or a real-time strategy game?
They didn't, though.
Or a sports game? Or a visual novel?
They didn't. What's
Just because they make the games doesn't necessarily mean every choice they make is going to be good. And it's absolutely worth mentioning that taking a long-running series known for being a deep RPG and turning it into a dumbed-down basic bitch
Deep RPG? I don't know.
looter shooter is going to upset people, especially when the remaining RPG aspects of the game are extremely lackluster.
Yeah. you're
Regardless, it's absolutely understandable that Bethesda feels that staying in one place can get stale, but changing things alone is not the issue. The issue isn't that Fallout 4 diverged from being a 2D isometric turn-based RPG, the issue is that Fallout 4 neglected most of the aspects that made the series so great in the first place, in order to turn it into what basically amounts to a generic shooting gallery with a Fallout coat of paint.
No. You're gonna use that argument. Fallout isn't Fallout. Oh my god. It has Fallout in the title, and it's heavily Fallout themed. I think Fallout 4 captures the theme of Fallout more so than any of the other games. Well, Fallout 3 does too. But New Vegas is just kind of like a knockoff Red Dead 2. I guess if your computer can't run it. I'm just joking. New Vegas is its own masterpiece, but...
So that's what they did in Fallout 4. They threw out a huge amount of the core components of Fallout 3. Tone, atmosphere, location, setup, and made not so much a sequel to Fallout 3 as something brand new.
You mean like they did with Fallout 3? Their follow-up to Fallout 2 set it on the complete other side of the country, turned its existing factions into jokes, and killed any level of unique world building
Why does it matter where they set their game?
that could have existed by
Because it's up to the developers, really. They bought it, they spent the money, it was a lot. They spent a lot, and they have a right to do all this shit. I don't think they're simplifying their game. I think they are trimming the fat, but not excessively as these people are claiming.
failing to introduce new, interesting ideas to the series. The hilarious part of John's statement is that it isn't even true.
Probably gonna bring up another asinine remark that can't be proven either. That's okay.
Aside from the location change, with Bethesda does in every new release, Fallout 3 presents a grim, depressing wasteland in which civilization has failed to really start rebuilding in 200 years, and the setup to the story is that you're looking for a missing family member. Fallout 4 presents a grim, slightly less depressing wasteland in which civilization has failed to really start rebuilding in over 200 years.
Yeah, because people tend to forget that in Fallout 4, I don't think people give a shit. I think that's the main issue. I think even fucking Piper addresses that. I'm pretty sure. As you can tell, Fallout 4 is, I would say, a lot more war-torn. Seems like people just don't care. You know, like even the Minutemen, the fall of the Minutemen is a test to that. You know, how long have we been at this? An hour 52. Alright, I don't want this being 2 hours. I will do another one of these research things. Just going over his video. All of this is subjective. Like, I could care less, honestly, about if Matten actually did defame New Vegas. I personally like it. I'm not going to let that get to me. I don't even think fucking Matten did. I personally do know that he just criticized the game, and he's just getting a little too mad, and he's just bringing up arguments that can't be disproven, and he's speaking as if he knows. And he's the voice of RPGs, even though he, I guarantee you, doesn't understand Bethesda's RPGs. Well, for those of you watching, I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Peace the fuck out.